I came in today and Paulie goes, you know who the least relevant team in the NFL is? And I go, all right, let me guess. Carolina? He goes, no. I go, the Saints? No. Least relevant team.
The Dallas Cowboys are the least relevant team in the NFL.
Okay. Explain that.
Okay. Despite what analytics and other TV shows do with the Dallas Cowboys and overcover them.
It's called clicks, Paul.
Yeah, and that's a waste of everyone's time. They are 3-5. They're not a competitive team for this season. They should not be talked about as a possible playoff team. They cannot get by the Eagles or the Commanders. Okay, that's step one. That makes them not relevant. They're not even in play for this season at this point, right? They're getting worse by the week, okay?
They're always relevant.
Well,
whether they're winning or losing, they're always relevant.
I disagree. They're not good. They're not threatening. They also have their quarterback and wide receiver under contract for the next 3+ years. So nothing's changing at the key positions. Their ownership group, one person, he's not going anywhere. Yeah. And he usually sticks with his coach. So nothing's changing there. There's no developments on the horizon. There's no improvement on the horizon. And there's no threat for them to be a good team this year. They're not even bad enough to be interesting. Like the New Orleans Saints are more interesting from the standpoint of, at least in the offseason, they can get a new quarterback if they keep losing.
Yeah, but they're not interesting now.
Just like the Cowboys aren't interesting now.
The Cowboys are interesting because you got the Dak situation.
But I don't think there's a situation because of his contract. If they like in August, I said, don't sign him. And they shouldn't have. And everyone said, sign him, sign him, sign him, sign him.
No, I said I wouldn't sign him. Not for that money.
It seemed like a lot of people critiqued them for not getting him signed before the start.
Yes, I said if you're going to sign him where you can save you money. You can get Derrick Henry.
So now they're going to miss the playoffs and have their quarterback for $150 million for the next 3 years. That's not changing. Neither tradable nor cuttable.
Who's a better quarterback? Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins.
Come on. That's an insult to somebody in that list, but I'm not sure who.
Okay, who would you rather have? Well, I can't do that because of the age, but this season, you want Kirk Cousins, right? Is Kirk Cousins a better quarterback than Dak Prescott?
Sure.
And I'm not saying this for clicks. I truly believe Kirk Cousins has performed better. I don't know about Dak was an MVP candidate. I don't know if Kirk Cousins has ever been an MVP candidate. Yes, Paulie.
The Dallas Cowboys have been outscored this year by 54 points. I mean, that puts them in a pretty bad category. For example, the Jaguars have been outscored by 57 points.
But I think the Cowboys are relevant because they have all this money tied up in these players. They haven't even paid Micah Parsons. Like, I don't even know how they're going to be able to pull this off. You're going to have a couple of shiny objects, and then you're going to have practice squad guys, it feels like. But if they get the defense healthy, if the players come back who have been injured, now you might have an opportunity here. And maybe you're just going to be spoiler. But do I think they're the least relevant team? No.
I'm being partially facetious, but what I'm saying, though, is when there's nothing in the horizon of change for a team, they're not changing ownership, coach, or quarterback in the next calendar year, probably. And so,
well, they're going to change the coach.
I'd bet against it.
Okay.
Based off Jerry Jones's history of being overly loyal, which is weirdly a good thing.
Yeah, but it's cost him.
Yes.
It's cost him dearly being loyal.
We admire it with the Steelers.
Instead of being a good businessman, well, first of all, hire the right guy. Hire the guy who feels like he's empowered.
Well, he has to unhire himself and then hire the right guy, which is impossible.
That would be a great press conference. That Jerry is going to fire himself at the press conference and then bring in somebody else.
If he wants to get the fans back on his side, he hires the best, most expensive general manager in football.
But here's the problem. Those fans are so loyal. They're like Shea and Irving. They're locked in. They have no place to go.
You're in a restaurant. You're in a town with one restaurant if you're a Cowboys fan. There's no changing where you're going.
Well, they've added some things to the menu. They should have taken some things away from the menu.
Well, they've committed to their menu for the next 5 years. Let's put it that way.
At least 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was.
But people see the thing is Duke basketball is always relevant.
But they don't. They rarely stink.
But if they do, then there's a portion of America who hates that. That they love that. The Yankees always going to be relevant, good or bad. They're relevant. They're Notre Dame football, good or bad. They're relevant. There's just certain teams that's you either root for them or against them.
I guess what I'm saying is their coverage, and this is as obvious as it gets, their coverage does not anywhere match their relevancy.
I'm right there with you. It's like the Lakers. They get more coverage than anybody else.
But, the Lakers, say what you want about the bubble, in the past 5 years, they have a title. I mean, they got to the highest of heights in the past 5 years. The Cowboys, their last Super Bowl appearance is the last one they won.
Was that 29 years ago? 30 years ago?
95, 96?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that's there's people in this building who weren't alive when they were in the Super Bowl. A number of them. The Lakers have won in the past 20 years 3 titles, maybe, right? I think that sounds right.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying is that they're so far from being actually relevant in football things, it doesn't match the coverage.
But the reason why the coverage is what it is because of the fan bases here. The coverage is skewed to let's only talk about the biggest fan bases. Therefore, when you're clicking through and you see First Take or Get Up or any of these other shows, and the topic bar has to do with Cowboys, chances are you'll click on that. And instead, if I was talking about the Saints, you would be like, I'm not going to stick with this.
And am I being a hypocrite by doing this segment right now? By doing 10 minutes on the Cowboys on a football Monday? Am I being a hypocrite to exactly my point?
It is awkward when, and this would be our second segment in as many weeks, of talking about the over coverage of a team that doesn't deserve the coverage. So
right.
You're talking about the coverage.
Yes, I'm discussing
right.
the coverage, not the team. By discussing the team's irrelevancy, I'm critiquing the coverage.
But you have to critique the coverage.
Yes.
To then, you're talking about, is this team relevant? Cowboys are relevant, but, this is a default topic. All else fails, there's certainly 3 or 4 topics you can talk about every single day. Doesn't matter.
I don't understand.
Because of the fan bases.
The Pittsburgh Steelers seem to have a large fan base. I think that's very fair. They're not getting enough coverage. It's 6-2 with 2 decent quarterbacks.
But there's nothing. What's interesting?
I think their quarterback situation is fascinating.
But it's Russ. If Russ didn't play well, now it's interesting. Mike Tomlin doesn't give you anything.
I think everyone expected Russ to play poorly, and him playing above average, like B-level football, is not interesting because it doesn't match the desire for him to fail.
Why aren't the Eagles talked about more?
Because they just righted the ship.
Well, okay, then why aren't we talking about that?
Yeah.
And you got a coach who was on the hot seat. Quarterback didn't get along with him. Expectations were really high, and then all of a sudden they weren't. And now they're winning, and they feel like they're like the second best team in the NFC right now. Yes, Marv.
Going back to the Steelers, I think the thing is they're not polarizing like the Cowboys are. There's nobody that really says, like Gus doesn't say when Pittsburgh loses, America wins.
Yeah.
But that polarization is forced. Dak Prescott's not that interesting of a guy. He seems like a nice person.
But the reason why the Cowboys are polarizing is because they're overcovered.
Yeah, great.
And then you're like, oh, God, Duke is overcovered.
Nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody. People don't hate the Cowboys. They transfer the hatred of the overcoverage to hating the team.
Yes, Todd.
Beyond the fan base, I think to a certain extent, especially for the average fan, we all get brainwashed to a certain extent. Whether it's a certain game we should be watching because a broadcaster was assigned to it, or they're talking about someone or something a lot, they must be important. I guess that's an important team or player to follow.